Ride the wild wind.
Don't sit on the fence.
Hey, 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 hey.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of our podcast, Ride the Wild Wind, where we talk about anything and everything to make wind energy more profitable with experts from the industry. And today we have one such expert, Matias Palacios, with us. Matias, thank you for joining us.
Yes, hello. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Great. Thank you for taking the time, and we're really looking forward to this conversation. Now, Matthias, you're quite an experienced person, and one of the things that makes you unique is you have both oil and gas experience, and now you're working mostly in the wind space, both onshore and offshore. As far as I know, you're a specialist in operations and maintenance with a lot of time spent dealing with rotating equipment in particular. You've gotten your hands dirty, you've held a lot of managerial positions as well, and you're very keen on the use of data and things like that to make these things, to run the processes a lot smoother. And obviously, being from Total Energies, you're involved in a wide variety of cases with an ever-growing portfolio as well. I can't imagine the type of challenges and the number of challenges you're running into on a daily basis. Is there anything in particular you'd like to highlight with respect to your background?
Yeah, I can say that, time to time I remember my application letter to Total Energies, and I remember I used to say that I loved to see the challenges and follow up some construction activities wearing a coverall. And I'm still doing that today, and I'm very, very
Nice.
excited when I'm go on site with renewable or oil and gas plants. So yeah.
Yes.
I'm a mechanical engineer, and I love to be on the site. That's true.
Nice. And that's the type of stuff we're going to talk about today, mostly. All right. So, as I think, you being part of Total Energies and a lot of experience in oil and gas as well, that's kind of where I want to start the conversation with. So, in your opinion, what are some of the similarities and differences between the wind energy and the oil and gas industry? And then kind of tie that into, well, oil and gas has been around for a lot longer, both onshore and offshore, right? What are some of the things we can learn in the wind industry from the oil and gas industry?
You have just said it. We have sites onshore and offshore, which is first similarity between the wind. We have onshore sites, onshore wind turbines, and offshore wind turbines. And we have a lot to learn from oil and gas. That's true in the operations, in the way we maintain things. The machines are quite similar. So for me, as a mechanical engineer, a rotating equipment, a gearbox or a generator looks the same, whether it's for oil and gas or wind industry. And for offshore, the main challenge is the logistics, And the main difference would be that an offshore wind turbine is unmanned, contrary to offshore oil and gas plants where we can find people. And it's much more difficult to approach the wind turbine as we are not supposed to live on the wind turbine,
Yeah. And I guess putting living quarters for offshore wind turbines is not a common practice, whereas it's the thing to do when it comes to oil and gas, right?
Even less than a common practice. I haven't seen that so far. But the living quarter is generally a supply boat, which is even more comfortable than a normal offshore living quarter. So yeah, for the offshore wind, technicians are closer from sailors than oil and gas technicians, to my mind.
Yep. And I think when we look at it, taking two steps back, it's when we're talking about oil and gas assets, it's usually a big asset with a bunch of moving pieces, but it's kind of like one unique thing. Whereas when we talk about an onshore and offshore wind farm, it's space-wise, it's bigger, but it's individual things that are the same, repeated one after another.
Exactly.
How does that how does that come into play when you're doing your, maintenance planning, operations planning, and things like that? Do you see a difference in the approach because of that context?
Yeah, it's kind of simpler to have a numerous, let's say, equipment from the same manufacturer, same type, roughly, I would say. And an oil and gas plant, it would be more complicated because we have maybe less type of equipment, but a little bit more complex or with their own specificities. So for the maintenance point of view, it's quite different. It's quite different. In the oil and gas machine, maybe a little bit more powerful if we talk in terms of megawatts sometimes for the, let's say, the most critical and the biggest machines. But the number of machines on an offshore field is a significant challenge. That's true as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right.
And what having started my career at ExxonMobil as well some years ago in the oil and gas side, there was one thing that struck me was the fact that most of the oil operators actually operate and maintain their own assets, whereas in the wind energy, obviously, we have predominantly the wind turbine manufacturers doing their own operations and maintenance. How do you make that comparison, or do you see that we can learn from each other, the two industries?
Yeah, it will be difficult. The business models are completely different. Finally, with some similarities. It's a very interesting debate. That's true. So for the oil and gas, generally the assets belongs to the operator or to the let's say the major partners, things like that, and they operate their own machines. The machines belongs to them. They do whatever they want. The spare parts as well, and they're responsible of their machine. But in the wind, which surprised me when I joined this industry, is that generally, the contracts are mainly different, and the O&M is generally performed by the manufacturer, which is globally the main case, right? I think we can say that.
Yeah, it is. It's
and
definitely the
it's
case.
another position from the owner in order to get involved in the O&M. I bet things will change in the next couple of years or decades due to the involvement of more technical companies than before in the wind business, and that's why it could be interesting to see how it's going to shift and how we can be more involved as technicians and engineers in the O&M of a wind farm.
Yeah. And we see that as well with some of our other clients, and just looking at the industry, attending some of the events, it feels like as the level of knowledge in the industry grows, in the wind industry grows, and it becomes more distributed, then the asset owners get a piece of that knowledge and they feel a bit more comfortable taking on more responsibility when it comes to operations and maintenance as well. We also do see a trend. I think that trend is more pronounced in the North American market, for example, where the asset owners seem to be more inclined to take more of a responsibility when you compare it to the European market. So I agree with you. I think it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out in the next few years or maybe even decades, as you said. Okay, so ever-growing portfolio, Total Energies' renewable assets portfolio is growing continuously. And I want to ask you at a high level, how are you dealing with that? And maybe more specifically, is data playing any role? Is data helping in being able to manage this ever-growing portfolio of assets?
But if we come from the oil and gas, as you say, oil and gas, we are producing oil and gas for more than a century. So this industry has seen the arrival of all data and digitalization. But for the wind, especially for big wind assets, probably offshore, they will race together with the data and the digitalization. So that would make one big difference between the two industries. But of course,
so just to understand correctly, you're saying the digitalization and the use of data in the oil and gas is further ahead when you compare to wind.
No, that's further. But we operated or we produced oil and gas long time ago without any digitalization at all.
Right. Okay.
But
for
the large, offshore wind assets, they are coming with the digital. So it makes a huge difference. There is no digitalization to perform on a large offshore wind asset. It comes with it. But for older company, it's a subject. It's a matter of how we are going to get those assets with their data, and how we are going to build our knowledge on this data.
Okay.
But the machines are coming with let's say a modern like the digitalization. So of course, it has to be understood and dealt with that. You know.
Yes. So the assets already have it. Now it's up to the people to make best use of that data and
Exactly.
whatever digitalization, transformation, these are all the words that are floating around in the industry, all the buzzwords to make the best out of
Yeah.
that data.
And you know, as
Okay,
everybody
great
knows,
insight.
the value of the data. So it's as well a contractual matter whether who the data belongs to, who can transfer,
Yeah.
whether you can share to your subcontractors, to your SAS providers, things like that. So it's a huge
Exactly.
subject. But technically, the data is available and we can learn a lot for the data for our operations. That's right.
Right. In fact, last week I was at a conference in Amsterdam, and it was brought up there. So back in the day, SCADA data wasn't that available, so it was difficult to get hands on, Wind SCADA data. But now that's kind of, that problem is solved. Now it's a condition monitoring system, so the high frequency vibration data that is difficult to get a hands on. Sometimes due to technical, sometimes due to contractual reasons, but I'm hearing that the industry is opening up on that as well. So now more CMS data, high frequency vibration data, is becoming more accessible as well, which is a great thing for the industry, in my opinion, at least. All right, so I know you deal with a lot of different service providers, vendors, and you're running through some challenges on a daily basis with different type of things. I wanted to get your opinion on when you look at some solutions and things like that. What are some of the feedback, maybe? What are some of the pointers you would like to give to these software vendors, for example, saying, well, if you guys could do more of this, or if you could really understand this a little better, it would be more beneficial. Is there anything like that?
Yeah, you know, from my end, what I can see is that I'm afraid to say that a lot of providers are providing the same kind of services with a very, very light difference. And it's complicated for us as a client to understand better the products because we generally don't know how the algorithm are working and how the solution, the core of the solution is working. But the output is generally very powerful. It's very valuable for an operator to better understand the asset, the health of the machines. So for us, the output will be always the same. So depending on the, let's say, on the history of the client, of the industry, who you are talking to, or who let's say the developer is talking to, the solution may be a little bit different. Because sometimes some industries, they would like to better understand their product. Some others, they just want to have the results, to have the alerts, to have the notification of potential issues or things like that. From my end, I like to understand how it works. That's clear.
Yeah.
And for even more for the CMS and the vibration data because it's a little bit more complicated than just the time series. Even if you process with AI and you get your output, but for the vibration, it's another story. I really like to get my hands on it in order to really understand how it's processed. And for the developers, generally, the main challenge is the user interface, get something friendly and easy to use, which is kind of difficult. And once you get your user interface correct and you get your client into it very easily, that's where some efforts must be done. And flexibility, adaptability to the customer, so he has a lot of things he can customize. Then I think that's an effort where developers should invest.
All right. So I kind of like this focus on the user interface and making it easy because sometimes I think, and as a developer of software solutions, it's easy to fall into a trap of just giving everything and just bombarding the user with a lot of data, a lot of capabilities, but then sometimes it's easy to forget that the person on the other end who's actually using the product doesn't have all the time in the world, and some of them don't even have the expertise to make use of it. So I kind of like that point. How can people find that balance, I think, do you think?
Complicated. It depends on the clients as well. Some industries may have a lot of specialists in every domain. So it means that the developer has to cover every subject, from cyber security to to user interface, to administrator management and auto reporting, data quality,
Yeah.
and some others
Yeah.
just have to focus on the user interface. It will be okay.
Yeah.
Because the
Yeah.
client won't be very interested in understanding everything from the solution. So that's the
Great.
final client has to be carefully identified from the beginning of the build phase.
Yeah.
It will have a great
And I
impact.
guess, and it's not a one size fits all. You're right. I guess we have to look at the different users, even within the same company.
Yeah.
That's a different thing to pay attention to. I loved it. This was great. I mean, this is probably one of the sessions where we went into the most details. So it's very clear your experience working on site, but also dealing with data and technology. It really comes across. Thank you for sharing all that, Matias.
No, you're welcome.
And as we're coming towards the end, here's my favorite question, and this is what I like ending it with, so it gives us something to think about. It's going to be really interesting because you have an oil and gas background as well, quite heavy. What is the one thing you don't like about the wind energy industry?
That question for me is very, very easy to answer.
All right,
I
okay.
think
I'm all ears.
it's too much contractually oriented.
Okay.
You know, when we try to get some information regarding to the technology, to the issues, to failures, then it's always covered by contract, by intellectual properties, and I cannot understand everything. So it's very difficult to get the hands on the drawings, to see how things are designed. And I think it's a shame. I would like to know more the machines from the design perspective, you know. And sometimes I think
All right,
it's a
so
shame.
this is Matias, the mechanical engineer, in his coveralls. He wants to get stuff done as quickly as possible. Don't bother me with all this red tape. I love it.
Exactly.
Great.
You get it. That's my point
Yeah,
of view.
yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Matias, thank you again for your time. As you can see, I've been smiling during the whole call, so I've really enjoyed it, and I'm sure our viewers are going to love this as well and benefit from it as well. Any final words you'd like to share before we end it?
No, I think it's a great opportunity to discuss with you. I wish you the best.
All right, thank you, and thank you everyone for watching and listening to us, and we hope to see you on yet another episode of Ride the Wild Wind. Have a great day. Bye bye.